streets is undefeated. When the sun go down, ooh, it get wild, baby, wild, baby, wild, baby,
don't you ever try to move me. You best salute me. It's in the bloodstream. We're feeling like a douche. The compound, the lesson, the lies, the deception, the FBI's weapons, the punishment, detention. And I just want to free you from this slave shit. So murder is the case that we're faced with.
when the sun go down.
All right, Oval and Ruthless fans, this has been a video that has been in high demand ever since episode 1 of Ruthless, but it made more sense to actually allow more episodes of Ruthless to actually come out first before doing some sort of timeline video. So just a forewarning, if you honestly, I've not seen comments like this in quite a while, which is good because I remember there was a time where it's like, you talk too much and get to the point. But in a video like this, let me forewarn you, this might be 30 plus minutes long. At the moment, it might be 40. I do not know for sure. So if you need to kind of, grab something to eat, something to drink while you watch this video / listen to it, I'd advise doing so. This video is going to I guess you could say, see if we can tie together the events of Oval and Ruthless. There are two big things, two big events that happen within the main continuity of the Oval storyline that have yet to actually happen on Ruthless. So we're going to be diving deep into events of both series. Just so you know, myself and Chandler, we did a lot of research on this one. Starting last night, I rewatched various scenes of the Oval, like the ending of episode 1, the beginning of episode 2, basically when Ruth and 3 other members of the cult had Callie abducted, as well as skipping to episode 8 when Tally first showed up at Nancy's house the very next night. Also in episodes 4 at the end, in episode 5 when Nancy and Barry are at the police station filing the report about the kidnapping, and then the detective or the person at the police station brings up about a body that they needed identified, and it turned out to potentially be Ruth. So there are going to be a lot of questions raised in this video, hopefully a lot of questions answered. Just so you know, I've done as much research as possible. Thankfully, me and Chandler had like a 45-minute discussion on this, and there were a couple things I actually missed, so I'm glad we talked about it. But before going any further, let me just say, anything said in this video does not diminish my enjoyment of Ruthless. Ruthless is a phenomenal show. So far, 4 episodes in, I think it's better than the Oval and Sisters. I'm just saying, yes, it is a wild show. But in terms of pacing and character, this show's got it. So I definitely recommend checking out BET Plus. I believe it's $9.99 a month for a subscription. First 7 days are free. So right now, if you got BET Plus, what's today, Sunday, you can watch the first 4 episodes and episode 5 coming out this Thursday before your free trial runs out. Not to mention every episode of the Oval, the first 12 episodes are on BET Plus now as well. So check it out. Remember, I'm a fan like everyone else. I'm not sponsored by BET Plus. I don't work for BET. I don't work for Tyler Perry Studios, and I don't work for OWN. So keep that in mind. So for any of the cast members watching, phenomenal job on Ruthless so far. Whew. And we're about to cover a lot of ground. So just my disclaimer. There are some things that don't make a lick of sense within Tyler Perry's universe in regards of time. The 2 big questions that we need to ask, I want to repeat this again now. The 2 big questions. Was Ruth the woman that Barry identified at the police station? If so, shouldn't Ruth be dead in the continuity of the Ruthless series? Also, Tally popped up at Nancy's house the next night, pretty much within 24 hours of when Callie was abducted. These are 2 important events that if they line up with the Oval's timeline, then these shows fit together like a glove. But while watching the very first scene of Ruthless, I came across some inconsistencies. So before we jump in, the last thing I want to say, if you are new to the channel, I'd really appreciate it if you took a moment to hit the subscribe button. I think we are about 20 people away from 112,500 subscribers, which is amazing. Also, give this video a thumbs up. Guys, this video took a lot of work. And hopefully the photos will line up with my audio. That way I'm not just repeating photos, you know, for visual filler. I want to make sure these photos line up as best as I can. Let's try to go for, I'm going to be bold, 250 likes. Let's set a goal of 250 likes. Also, make sure you hit the bell notification icon. That way you don't miss out on any new content when I post to the channel. And make sure you follow me on social media. All those links are in the description below. So the first scene doesn't make sense. So the very first scene of Ruthless, we see Tally driving at night and Daikon is on the passenger side. Doesn't make sense. Let's go back to the Oval episode 1. Ruth is invited back to the house thanks to Nancy, while Barry's at the White House helping Richard move some things around due to his back problems. So we know that due to a restraining order, Ruth is not allowed to be around their daughter or Nancy's house, if I'm not mistaken. But Nancy, after hearing how much Callie misses her mom, decides to call up Ruth without anybody else knowing and say, hey, I can allow you 1 hour with Callie. So Ruth is allowed back in the house. Fast forward, 2 hours pass by, and when Nancy says, okay, Callie, it's time to go to bed, Ruth isn't having it. She even goes on to say some very interesting lines of dialogue. And if Nancy was sitting in the chair right across the room, and Callie and Ruth were sitting on the couch, and it looked like Ruth was trying to teach Callie some of the different symbols and whatnot that the Rakadushis use for worship, so to speak. Ruth is saying that Callie isn't going anywhere except for with her. Basically, Callie is special, and Ruth will be enlightened once she brings her to the highest. So it seems to me, based on this dialogue. Oh, also, I forgot to say, if you haven't watched Ruthless yet, there will be spoilers because I have to cover information or events that happen within the continuity of Ruthless in order to explain the story. So yeah, spoiler alert if you haven't watched the Oval or Ruthless, which once again, get BET Plus. Even though I'm not sponsored. And I could really use a sponsorship on the channel. So nudge, nudge, wink, wink, wink. If anybody's watching that wants to help brother out. Yeah, so basically she says a phrase that I don't know. I think her eyes rolled back and she said a phrase that was like, remember in the Wayans brothers, whenever one of the brothers were in trouble, they go, woo-hoo! And it's like, woo! And then like Pops come out here, like, yo, Zach, tripping, boy. You tripping, boy. Help brother out. I missed that show. So 2 men come into the living room, and Tally is actually well covered, like in terms of her face. Like I had to go back and rewatch that scene a couple of times because I didn't realize Tally was in the living room when Callie was abducted. I believe Nancy brought it up when she reappeared in episode 8, but I didn't notice Tally because again, she was a unknown character at the time. But it was 2 males who held Nancy down when she had the knife. And they took the knife, allegedly the same big knife that she thought Barry used to kill Ruth, even though he didn't do it. So, yeah, I mean, she saw them take... Okay, I've already done a video on the knife. Yes, I have an entire playlist of the Oval and an entire playlist of Ruthless videos on the channel. Trust and believe you want to check them out. Between episode reviews, discussions, and theories, I cover a lot of stuff. But basically, Tally carries Callie out of the house. The 2 guys hold down Nancy. Now Tally's going to the car with Callie in her arms, and then you had the two dudes. I think one of them was like holding Nancy back because obviously she's trying to get her grandchild back. Callie screaming, Ruth is standing by the car in a prayer pose. So Tally, and this is a white car with a fin on the back. The car is empty. Tally, driver's seat. Ruth, passenger side. In the back of the car, the 2 guys and Callie. And then Nancy's freaking out. One of the neighbors walks out. Nancy, what's going on? And she tells her to call the police immediately. So then we know from the events of the Oval, Nancy gets in the car, drives around, panicking, trying to find out where Callie is, to no avail because she doesn't know where they're going. So we get to the first scene of Ruthless, where I said we already had a continuity issue. And here's where we get to the continuity issue. I said Tally is driving the vehicle, which she was in Ruthless. Tally is driving the same vehicle she was in episode 2 of the Oval. Because remember, episode 1 ended with the whole Barry and Gale situation. But in terms of the final scene with Nancy in that episode, that's when she's being pinned down and Roof is going, bring us the little children. And look, I love Ruthless, but we are 4 episodes into the series and I have not heard that song sung once. It better show up before episode 10 or there are going to be some problems. I want that released as a single on Spotify. Seriously, is that an original song? I mean, I'll put it on loop, for real. That was a catchy song. Look, I mean, Melissa L. Williams looks like Sierra, and then the fact that she can sing a song, creepy as it is great. I mean, Michael Jackson, look, let's not get into that debate, but Michael Jackson has a song on, I believe the history is like, do you know where your children are? Is that on History or was it on Escape? I think there is a song where it's like, have you seen my childhood? Okay, that I think is on History. I think, do you know where the children are on Escape? Cause I remember a friend of mine I used to work with made fun of me. He's like, have you looked at the track list? Yeah, I saw it. But, bring us the little children. Okay, so, Daikon is in the car even though he shouldn't be. Now, Chandler and I were talking about, I said, okay, I'm going to give the show some leeway on this. I'm going to give the show some leeway. The 2 guys who were in the house who helped abduct Callie, they were kind of like nameless cult members or, you know, for the sake of like comic book fans or movie fans, you know, they're like nameless henchmen or whatnot. They were just there to help the plot move along. They were not characters of consequence. So you could make the argument that one of the guys there, because there was a, okay. One of the guys there could have been a stand-in for Daikon because at that time, Tyler Perry didn't want Daikon to be seen by the cast or maybe, viewers, or maybe Daikon hadn't been cast at that time. So when Ruthless started, that's when they were introducing a main character like Daikon. Chandler, once again, brought up a point like, well, what if they stopped somewhere, I don't know, on the way to meet up with the other car, and then Daikon was picked up? I don't think that was a possibility. Here's, again, let me give Tyler Perry some leeway here. I would not be surprised if on their way from Nancy's house to the location where they would swap vehicles, Roof was moved to the back seat and the guy who was in the back was moved to the front seat. So one of the guys could have been, air quotations, Daikon, and Roof moved to the back seat in order to help Callie calm down. Like, remember, she was just taken by force from her grandmother's house by her mother and 3 strange people in robes, tossed into a car, and she's in the back seat with 2 big guys. Pretty sure she would feel a little bit more comfortable for mama. So I would not be surprised if on their way to the meetup point, Tally stopped the car somewhere and Roof moved to the back seat and Daikon moved up to the front with the other random guy who was not Andrew, was in the back seat with Roof and Callie. Due to the fact that if you go back to the beginning scene of Ruthless, Callie was throwing a fit. Daikon is like, silence her now. I could definitely see them pulling over to let Roof get in the back seat. So an off-screen thing that happened, which I will allow for the sake of continuity. So, hey, look, we're almost like 15 minutes into this video. Guys, remember, I'm breaking this down piece by piece, so stay with me on this. So the cars stop in the middle of an unknown street. And remember, we're talking about them going from a location close to DC to Rockwell, Virginia. I'm pretty sure that's a difference of about 2 or 3 hours. I know that Rockwell, Virginia is 2 hours from where I live in Virginia. So, yeah, it's a long drive. So, in any case, they stop in the middle of the street. You have the white car with the fin on the back, which is the one that Tally's driving, that has Daikon, Roof and Callie, and then the other random dude. The other car, which I believe was like a silver or gray color, the one that Tally switches over to drive and wrecks into the tree. That car was driven by Andrew because they stop in the middle of the street. Andrew gets out of the car, and here's where Tyler... I had to watch this scene 15 times in slow motion because Tyler Perry used tricky camera angles where we saw the car stop, but then the camera would, like, what's it called, panning or turning. So you see the front of the other car, even though it was focusing on the other car that when they pulled over. But anyway, Andrew gets out of the driver's seat, moves, it steps back a few spaces to be in the, the seat right behind the driver. You know, we stood outside the car. We see Tally get out of the car with the fin. We see Roof and Callie get out of the car with the fin. But we don't see Daikon get out of the car yet. Somehow Daikon is magically at the passenger door of the other car that Tally jumps in to drive. So it's a pretty much quick swap, exchanging of vehicles, which is a smart move because yeah, Nancy could have described, or the neighbor could have described the car that would have been outside of Nancy's house to the police. So if the police do find the car, guess what? Callie isn't in it. Yeah, this is a mouthful. So now we have the vehicle that Tally is driving when she's being told to slow down, and then for being disobedient, she's struck in the face and then wrecks the car and then gets the truck. All right, so guys, this is all in the same night. Yeah. So the first major, I honestly, like I said, I don't call it a major inconsistency just because, once again, I could believe that the two men that were at the house taking Callie with Tally and Ruth were just stand-in characters, and one of them easily could have been scrubbed away to be Daikon in episode 1 of Ruthless. So I'm not going to hold that against Tyler Perry. No, that's not it at all. It's not uncommon for things like that to happen in animated series, movie franchises, or in this case, television series. So now we get to the part where it gets very confusing, because it all comes down to whose body did Barry see at the police station. Oh yeah, before we get to Nancy and Barry arriving at the police station to kind of follow a report, two big things. Number one, during the first episode of Ruthless, we not only have the first half of the episode covering the events of the night of Callie's abduction, but during the back half, when we're kind of, following the story of Lynn, getting the information on the cult and going to go investigate herself. So pretty much the first half of the Ruthless episode, episode 1, or pilot episode, was focusing on the night of the abduction, but then the back half was focusing on like the morning of the next day. Keep that in mind. Also, during that night, you have Nancy and Sharon at Nancy's house, and then a couple of police officers who show up when they're called, but then hear the Rakadushis, and we're like, whoa, Rakadushis. So pretty much they were saying nothing could be done in regards to the abduction until they come to actually file an official report the next morning. Just to, clear that up. So at the ending of towards the end of episode 4, we have Barry and Nancy sitting in the police station talking with like the detective, who honestly seemed a bit indifferent about the whole thing. Mainly because, remember, in terms of the Oval, gang members, the police, they want nothing to do with the cult. It's like, look, the cult does what the cult does. They have kids. Most of the kids there, most of the people involved say they're there for their free will, or they have custody of the children. So once they're gone, they're gone. Wait, didn't Picky even tell Barry, like, look, your daughter, just let it go, man. Let it go. You ain't going to see her no more. So, sheesh. They're sitting at the police station, and Barry and Nancy explain the situation to the detective. She comes back, asks the same questions again. It's like, so did she have a tattoo on her upper shoulder, like, that said Barry? It's like, yeah. What about the scar? Yeah, she got a scar. Did the tattoo look like this? So she had photos, and I hate to make the reference, but photos of the tattoo, and then photos of Ruth's face that honestly looked pretty banged up, like the whole Rihanna Chris Brown situation when the media released those photos of the beating. Yeah, that's pretty much what clicked in my mind when I saw it. So Ruth and Nancy and Barry, based on the photos and the questions that were being asked, kind of identified the body that the police had shown in the photos as Ruth. And Barry said his signature line, well, what about my daughter? Then in the next episode, Barry goes to identify the body, which honestly, I remember when I first watched the episode, I know people were like, that's not Ruth. And I'm like, nah, I think that's her. But then after rewatching the scene, and thank goodness, trust me, there's a different experience when you go back to watch episodes that have been out for like months and you just see it again. It's like, wow, you notice things you didn't the first time. So they didn't show the entire body. We pretty much have like the doctor or whoever like pull out the cabinet of the morgue or the compartment, and you see like the head and kind of like the neck and maybe like the shoulder area of the woman. So we didn't see the full body. Look, I had just eaten a Rice Krispie before I rewatched that scene, and I wasn't trying to see that Rice Krispie come up again. So thankfully, Tyler Perry didn't show us that much, but we saw enough. And Barry, obviously, based on his tone and the dialogue, he seemed very uncertain if that was Ruth. However, you do have to take into account that he was looking at a disfigured mutilated corpse. And honestly, I don't think I would have went back there for starters. But also, yeah, he did say the tattoo and scar looked familiar. So it most likely was Ruth. So after some, more dialogue, dissection, and research, look, guys, I'm not sick, and I'm not even joking on that. I'm not sick. It's just I'm doing a lot of talking in this video, and honestly, I should have like a bottle or a glass of something near my microphone so I could take a sip, because my throat's going to get dry doing all this talking. So, it was said that this body was found naked without any ID. The victim was stabbed, the face mutilated, and I believe the doctor was saying that, they're stabbed in the chest. The body was found on the side of the road on a Benton Street underneath a bridge. And then I did some, Google searching just to kind of double check, make sure what's the definition of mutilate. To inflict a violent or disfiguring injury or inflict serious damage on something or someone. Now, this goes back to a video I did last week about the opening theme song of Ruthless. And there's one particular scene where you have a lady who looks like her face had been, I guess you could say disfigured due to maybe like acid or something. And I was saying, I wonder if that's Sarah, Andrew's wife. Watch that full video for details. I go pretty in depth, but it turns out it's not Sarah. It's actually a character we have yet to see named Nisi, portrayed by a wonderful actress named Selena. And I was thinking, what if this character was the same one at the police station, due to the fact that obviously her face in the opening credits is obviously being disfigured, and then the corpse at the morgue at the police station was said to have been mutilated / disfigured, which could mean that, oh, Barry identified the wrong body. But how would this person have a tattoo that says Barry? Well, maybe this is a person that knows a Barry that isn't the Barry from the Oval and just so happened to get a tattoo with the name Barry in the same location as Ruth. I guess. Yeah, I guess that makes sense. But when we go back to the Ruth theory, in terms of the Oval, it makes sense that this is Ruth, because going back to another video I did last week, we learned that in terms of the, I guess you could say, some of the guidelines of the cult, begging is not permitted, yet envy is encouraged. Because when, I guess you could say, Ruth was being elevated, she was being, I guess you could say, brought up to a new level as an elder, the highest was definitely not shy from telling her, look around, look at the other women. You could tell they're jealous of you, don't you? Yes. Good. Let them be jealous. Let them know what happens when they too elevate to the next level. So pretty much based on the Rakadouchi way, it seems like you shouldn't beg. It's almost like a dog eat dog world, so to speak, where don't beg for something, you take it almost. Obviously, I guess you need to be appointed for it officially. Well, I guess also Daikon was big about Andrew not taking sexual, I guess you could say, activities with the women unless he had been authorized to or something. So, yeah, can I get a handbook to the Rakadouchi way? I'm not saying I want to join for the sake of these theory videos. I really feel like I need to know the guidelines, because the last thing I want to do is put out fake information and then the cult come knocking on my door. Let me just put it out there right now. But I was thinking that, okay, if you look at how Ruth is interacting with one of the elder mothers, the one who's always been saying, like, well, if you have to talk to the highest, then you need to tell me first. Like, no, I'm an elder now. I want to talk to the highest directly. And she's like, oh, it's like that now. It almost breeds some sort of jealousy where maybe this particular mother or mothers don't like how Ruth is being elevated, or maybe the highest is taking a favor to her over them. And as a result of that, they decide to conspire against Ruth and have her killed, leading to her body being found at the police station. However, remember what I said earlier in the video about two key events needing to line up, such as Tally escaping and getting to Nancy's house, as well as Ruth's apparent death and her body being found at the morgue? This is where things don't make sense. Okay, so in terms of Ruthless, I even have a little chart here I wrote down in my notebook. During episode 1 of Ruthless, like I said before, the first part of the episode covered the night of the abduction, and then the back half of the episode is kind of like the next morning, you know, from where Lynn and Brian are getting ready for their respective, day, and Lynn somehow ends up at Rockwell, Virginia. So we don't even know where Lynn and Brian are at, but I'm going to assume it's somewhere in Virginia or close to DC. So to my knowledge, again, this is why I waited for a few episodes to come out, yet we still don't know that important piece of information. We can somewhat assume that maybe Brian and, let's see. They don't live in Rockwell, Virginia, due to the fact that Mac was like, look, you and Lynn need to relocate. So they're not in Rockwell. It's just that Mac needed them to move closer or to Rockwell, Virginia. But I'll save that tidbit of discussion for later in the video. Back to my chart here. Episode 1 of Ruthless, the night of the kidnapping, and then the next morning. Episode 2 of Ruthless happened during the same day. Episode 3 happened during the same day. Episode 4 happened during the same day. But the thing is, by the time we get to the end of this episode of Ruthless, it is nighttime. The day before the sheriff and Deputy Brian are supposed to come to the cult to examine it to make sure things are, up to snuff, I guess you could say. Now, this is why, even though after all the evidence I presented so far from the Oval suggests that Ruth is dead, because I do believe that Barry did tell Denise about Ruth being dead, and then Denise blamed it on him when it really wasn't him, allegedly. Ruth is being seeded or fertilized by the 7 rings at night, okay? This is the day after the Callie kidnapping. But this does not make sense within the continuity of the Oval, because remember, this same day, the night of the coordination, which she's at right now, that very morning is when Ruth was identified by Barry, because this was the morning after the kidnapping where Barry and Nancy arrived at the police station. So those photos that the detective showed Barry and Nancy theoretically should not be Ruth, due to the fact that Ruth is still alive within the continuity of the Ruthless series. And according to IMDb and things that I researched, Melissa L. Williams is supposed to be, or shall I just say Ruth, is supposed to be in all 24 episodes of Ruthless. This only makes sense if that is not Ruth at the police station, even though technically based off the evidence, this should be her. Yeah, this is a big plot hole. This is the first big WTF moment in this theory and connecting the shows. Now, again, we could take a liberty here and say, well, Jeremy, maybe it isn't Ruth at the police station. Maybe it's just a identification of a woman who just so happened to have a similar scar and tattoo as Ruth. Fair enough-ish, I guess is the best way to put it. Now let's shift gears to the second big point in terms of identifying when exactly Ruthless takes place within the continuity Oval. Now this is something that cannot be avoided. The Ruth thing is suspect, okay? Because again, it could be completely feasible that it was a mistaken identity, or what's the word called? John Doe and Jane Doe? Is that the correct term of like a body of or a person who has yet to be identified? So let's just call the body at the police morgue a Jane Doe. And Ruth is in fact still alive. Here's something that cannot be escaped because this was a bigger plot point in the Oval. Tally escaping the cult, bursting through the back door of Nancy's home at the end, towards the end of episode 8 of the Oval. Now, remember what I said before. Episode 1 of Ruthless covers the night of the kidnapping and then the beginning of the next day. Episodes 2, 3, and 4 are that same day, with episode 4 being towards the end of the day / nighttime. Now, if we kind of go back to the inaugural ball, is that the ceremony where the president and first lady dance in episode 1? That takes place after the inauguration, right? The same day, right? Look, Yeah, I think so. But in any case, those events take place typically mid to late January, January 20th, January 22nd. This is before we spring forward for daylight savings time. So this is a point in time where it gets dark early. So we could take another liberty here and say that the coordination for Roof is happening between like 6 to 8 p.m. ish when it gets dark outside. Like it's really 10 p.m., but it's still kind of early. Remember, I'm taking some liberties here because we don't have a freaking clock. Guys, yeah, this is what we do on the channel. This is what I do. I go in depth because I'm trying to piece this together to make sense. Tally is being locked up like Akon. They won't let me out. Because she was punished in front of the cult, even though like Tally, I would have said the same thing she did. Wait, I thought I was punished enough for my screw up. Now you're telling me Roof needs to beat my ass in front of everybody, including my daughter? Yeah, yeah. So she's locked away. And Andrew says to be quiet because she says, I promise you tomorrow morning, if you can make it to tomorrow, I'll find a way to get you out of here. I might still do a separate video on this, but this video needs to encompass a lot in order to get my point across. Somehow, some way, this night, Tally needs to not only escape the cult in Rockwell, Virginia, but somehow make it to Nancy's house, which I do believe we can pinpoint as close to DC, given the fact that Richard is the butler at the White House. This woman needs to travel some distance, I'll tell you that. So Tally needs to travel, give or take, about 2 hours from Rockwell, Virginia to the DC location to Nancy's house. This is obviously something she is not doing on foot. So by some means, Tally needs to get from point A, Rockwell, Virginia at the Rakadushi compound, to point B, which is Nancy's house, a place she feels that the cult will never come to find her. She even says to tells Nancy and Sharon, look, don't call the cops because some of the police are actually within the cult. And on top of that, they want to kill me because I want to escape. I want to leave. But Ruth kept telling me that Miss Nancy was always a good woman. She would help people no matter what, and the cult will never look for me here. Okay. Now, me and Shannon went back and forth for like 15 minutes on a potential way for Tally to escape that night. I was under the assumption, because remember, I was going to do like 3 separate videos like, how does Tally escape? Does Ruth help her escape? Does Andrew help her escape? Does Ruth help her escape not only at the guilt of beating her friend in front of everyone, but also the fact that Tally tried to tell her ass they would gang assault her. I'm not using the R word due to demonetization, but yeah, she was obviously shaking at the end of episode 4 for good reason, because honestly, based off what Nancy and Callie were being told by Ruth in episode 1 of the Oval, Callie, you're special. If I bring you to the highest, I will be enlightened. So my impression was that Ruth was under the impression, hey, I'm going to be elevated to the elder status if I bring my daughter to the highest because she is special. Thinking that she would lay down with the highest instead of the 7 rings. Literally, I was under that impression as well, until Tally said what she said. So, in a show of good faith, maybe Ruth helps Tally escape. And then is killed as a result. And then Tally's on the run, and the cult is trying to find her. So that would theoretically make sense. Sorry, Tally, I don't have time to help save your daughter, but I do have time to save you. I know this puts my life in danger, especially since I'm now an elder, which leads to potentially Daikon or the elder, the mother who wasn't too happy with how Ruth was speaking to her, getting rid of her for treachery. And then that leads to Ruth not only being stripped of her rank, but stripped of her clothing, stabbed, mutilated, and left under the bridge on Benton Street, and then she was found and then identified by Nancy and Barry. However, that does not make sense because this is a 24-hour time frame which does not exist. Because remember, all this should have happened the night before. Well, the night of the abduction. But for the sake of Tally, maybe Andrew helps her escape. She said maybe the next, hey, wait until morning, but maybe after the whole coordination ceremony, and he was the first to apparently seed or give the highest the highest gave his seed to the seven rings, and then Andrew was the first one to give the roof. So perhaps he slipped away and then, used the opportunity to help Tally out. I don't know how she got out of that. I mean, possibly. Still doesn't answer the question of how the hell Tally gets to... Okay. This is where we get to even more theory / maybe this can make sense. Now, remember, we have the highest telling his followers and whatnot to make sure everything is up to snuff. That way, tomorrow morning when the sheriff and Brian come, let's just say that they come around before noon, because we know that Brian is supposed to be in Rockwell to meet up with the sheriff 2 hours before his other deputies and whatnot arrive at 10 a.m. Okay, so Brian said he'd wake up, he'd leave around 5-ish or something in the morning. So basically, Brian would leave to go to Rockwell early in the morning, arrive by 8, meet up with the sheriff, put on the guise or facade as the deputy. Then the other, deputies arrive at 10. So let's just say they go to the compound 10:30, 11 a.m. in the morning. Let's just say they get there before noon, because they did say they would go up there in the morning. All right, makes sense, right? Okay. So we know at the ending of episode 3, when the highest is giving his prophecy about everything, you have some of the members like taking drugs and, putting the weapons away, pretty much hiding everything so it looks clean cut. So when the sheriff comes in the morning, they wouldn't be afraid for any kind of searches or anything like that. One could potentially say that there are vehicles at the compound that are taking things away from the compound because they didn't have sufficient places to hide it. Drugs, weapons, things of that nature. Could it be possible that Tally somehow escapes from the storage unit or whatever, the prison or whatever you want to call it that she's locked away in right now, pulls a Gale from the old, because remember, Jason helped Gale escape the White House by putting on a maid outfit and jumping in the trunk of Jean's car, which she still hasn't gotten back yet, by the way. Yeah. So maybe Tally is in the trunk or whatever of one of these vehicles that's driving away from the compound to another. I don't want to say get rid of the weapons and drugs. I'm pretty sure they have stockpile units in other parts of the state or whatever. So maybe one of these vehicles was going to a location near DC, where the events of the Oval take place. So Tally pretty much, what's the word I'm looking for? Stowed away in one of the vehicles. And then during the stop, she jumps out of the vehicle and, maybe rolls out of the trunk or something, or escapes the cult members who are trying to kill her. Hence why she burst through the back door of Nancy's house looking for refuge, because you can literally tell that she was beaten, like she had a bloody nose and everything. So she probably was caught by cult members she was stowing away with. Well, excuse me. She was probably caught by the cult members who were driving or traveling in the vehicle that she potentially stowed away in. Hence why she has fresh wounds, because of the fact that she had escaped a brutal beating. And that's why she was rushing to Nancy's house. Burst through the back door and look for refuge. So this probably happened close to where Nancy lives. Whew. This is a lot, folks. I really hope you all appreciate this video, guys. It's a lot of work. But there are a couple things we need to take into account, because, Channel was saying, well, hey, Andrew, it said that he hasn't cashed any of his checks. His accounts have been cleaned out. Boy, if he gives Tally some money. There are some things you need to take. I mean, maybe she stole a vehicle from the compound when she got out of the prison somehow. I don't think that's the case. I feel like, what if she took a vehicle but then dumped it somewhere and then made a beeline for Nancy's place? That's possible. I mean, that's not impossible, but I think the stowing away theory makes the most sense, just because, number one, it's a nod to the Oval because Gale did a similar thing, but also it makes the most sense because we're talking about almost a 2-hour drive from one spot to the other. And not only that, I'm pretty sure Tally does not have a gun in her current situation in Ruthless, in the storage bin and whatnot, because remember, I don't even think she had a gun at the prophecy meeting when she was getting beat down and then drugged to the storage unit by her hair by Andrew. So she picks up a gun somehow, whether it be in the vehicle that she stows away. Well, actually, that does make sense. If, let's say, she somehow gets into the back of a truck or the trunk of a vehicle that's transporting drugs and weapons, basically transporting things from the compound that they don't want the sheriff to find, and then that explains how she gets the gun that she uses to kill herself in the cliffhanger of episode 11 of The Oval. That actually makes sense. Okay, so this all has to happen tonight. What I mean by tonight is, even if the next 3 episodes of Ruthless take place at night, Tally's escape and eventual arrival at Nancy's house at the Oval needs to happen to make any sense at all. And I checked on IMDb, and Tally's going to be in a lot of episodes. At the moment, this doesn't make any sense, because we know when Tally gets to the house, she's talking with Sharon, she's talking with Nancy, and then like in the next morning, it's like I think she said that she had been up all night, like staring at the window, thinking about God and everything. And then she takes out a photo of her daughter, where she had written the address of the locations that the cult members were at. I believe it was said that one of the locations was like at one. I think that Kareem's Pharmacy is in like a strip mall, and one of the venues is where the Rakadushis were. And Sharon was like, I never recognized any of them there. I never seen anybody looking like, you, a cult member, going to that building. That's because they wear like regular clothes, and then when they get inside, they change it to their traditional garb, which is the robe and everything, which is a throwback to episode 1 of Ruthless, when Lynn was telling her flimsy story to Andrew about how she knew about the cult and where to find them, because she said, oh, I was in the store, 2 ladies were wearing the robes. And that's a lie, because they don't wear those kind of things in public. They wear regular clothes. They wear their formal garbs when they're in the compound or a location that is Rakadushi approved. Which goes back to yet another earlier point I made in regards to some of the police actually being affiliated with the cult. Now, thank goodness for Chandler and I's discussion, because this was something that went directly over my head, and I would have been misinformed while doing the video. Given the fact that the Rakadushis are known for being anti-white, anti-government, into drug/child and also sex trafficking, if I'm not mistaken, I was under the impression that none of the members were white. But then when I thought back to Tally and what she said about some of the police or cops being involved in the cult, being cult members themselves, that brought about confusion, because we had the 2 police who showed up at Nancy's house the night of the abduction. We had Nancy and Barry going to the police station at the end of episode 4. And then at the beginning of episode 5, they're at the police station. And then the 2 police officers that arrested Barry in episode 12. After close inspection, and once again, please feel free to let me know in the comments if I'm wrong. Even though technically I watched these scenes up to 3 times each. So it was 2:30 in the morning, so I was pretty tired. So I could have made a mistake. I don't believe I saw any non-white people working at the police department or being on the streets, or in this case, being at Nancy's house, or actually being at Nancy's house on 2 separate occasions. Once when they came to get the report about the abduction, and then another when they came by to arrest Barry. I don't believe any of them were black. But once again, feel free to correct me. The point I'm trying to make is, I was wrong in thinking, well, Tally must have made a mistake because, well, none of the police officers are black. But then again, Chandler brought it up. Go back to episode 3 when the highest was giving his speech to the cult members, his prophecy. Some of the cult members are white. And he said, no, not any of you here, because you all have seen the light. So yes, there are white members in the cult. My bad. Whew. So, with that being said, Tally's, I guess you could say, free pass of Nancy, don't call the cops, because you'll never see your granddaughter again. Because guess what? If you call the cops, they'll come and find me, take me away, kill me, and guess what? You're never going to find your granddaughter. So that was her leverage. Okay, So then we move on to the next morning where she takes the gun out, kills herself. And according to IMDb, Tally's supposed to be in episode 13, which I do believe is the episode of the Oval. Oh yeah, that's right. We're getting a 2-episode in one night event when the Oval returns sometime in May. I'm theorizing May 6th. I could be wrong. It could be the 13th. Remember, I don't know the official date yet, so I'm just speculating here like the rest of you. So please don't be rude in the comment section. I'm speculating early to mid-May for when the Oval comes back, and it's a 2-episode event. And you're probably wondering, well, why is the body still there? Because Barry didn't call the police, correct? He didn't want to call the cops. Wait, so when Barry found the knife and then got arrested, was Tally's body still in the living room? Look, I don't like gore, so I did not go back and rewatch episode 12 because I did not want to see Tally's brains everywhere, okay? Yes, I'm a coward, so there could be an inaccuracy in this video because of my unwillingness to watch episode 12. I do not apologize for that, but hopefully I'm still right. Chandler and I will, well, if she's supposed to be in episode 13 and then she's supposed to be in like 20 some episodes of Ruthless, what if Tally's still alive? And I'm like, no, we are not doing the same crap that they pulled on the haves and the have-nots. I will not forgive them for what they did in the haves and the have-nots, where Uncle Vinny had this. Look, I sound kind of stuffy. I've been talking too much. I actually took a quick break during the middle of recording to drink a half bottle of water. So yeah, I'm feeling better. Okay, so anyway, remember in the haves. Oh yeah, we're jumping series here. We're going to the namesake of the channel. We're going over to the haves and the have-nots. Remember when Wyatt was at the Iron Bone bar? And if you don't watch the haves and the have-nots, this entire reference will go over your head. The haves and the have-nots. Okay. Wyatt was at the Iron Bone bar. This was the day after Wyatt had backhanded his mother and almost took a statue and crushed in Jim's head because he took his drugs and poured them down the sink. He went over back to the bar to get drugs. Well, actually, excuse me. This was, okay. He went back that night, and then the next morning is when he came out of his drug-induced sleep because the bartender vouched for Wyatt. Give him the drugs. He'll pay for it in the morning. ATM. We'll be good to go. So, Wyatt gets high. Vinny wakes him up the next morning. This is before the bar is open. He goes to the ATM. There's no money in his account. Wyatt calls the bank. There's no money there. Vinny decides to kill him. So they get into a bar fight. Yeah, it was a bar fight. There you go. Okay, they get into a bar fight. Wyatt takes a beer bottle, I think, smashes it on the counter. And remember, his life is on the line. This isn't just a bar fight. This is like he will be killed. He takes it and like stabs Vinny in the throat. And he's left on the floor bleeding. Then Wyatt becomes sober and becomes intelligent enough to clean up his fingerprints, take the video tape out of the security camera at the bar. Jim shows up, takes Wyatt away. Benny shows up later that evening because I believe the guy was like, okay, we don't open until 7 or 8, or was it 6? Basically, Vinny is left bleeding out for most of that entire day. Benny gets accused of leaving Vinny on the ground. Benny gets home to, where Catherine has Hannah staying. Mitch goes to the bar, finds his uncle with a pulse, and Vinny somehow survives. So literally, Vinny Malone somehow survived being stabbed in the neck in the morning, left out to bleed on the floor of the bar, and then is still alive. And you're probably wondering, Jeremy, why'd you go on that tangent? Because this is Tyler Perry universe, and things don't make sense all the time, okay? People resurrect from the dead like it's Dragon Ball Z or the Marvel Cinematic Universe, okay? So, yeah. Is Tally still alive? That makes no sense if she is, okay? I don't know how Tally is alive I don't know how Tally is somehow in 20-some episodes of Ruthless, yet she was killed off. Okay, let me check my notes. Okay, so it was about 24 hours from the time of the abduction where she comes back to Nancy's house, and then the next morning she kills herself. So we were looking at about 24 hours and some change from when she escaped the cult, got to Nancy's house. The next morning, she gives over a photo of her daughter with the information about the cult's locations, and then shoots herself. safe to say she's dead. If Tyler Perry somehow, to be fair, Tyler Perry did end the last season of the Haves and Have-Nots with Wyatt shooting both parents and then getting shot himself. But then 6 months later, Wyatt shot at me. I fell backwards in the tub and kept bobbing my head up for air until the police came. Because that makes total sense, and the wall had 0 damage behind you, Catherine. No, I will not let that go. All right, so guys, the big questions here. Look, I probably need to be put away like Amanda needed to be put away, because this is driving me nuts. This makes no sense. Okay? This makes no sense. Basically, within the continuity of Ruthless, either in the Oval, Ruth, if she is not dead, if the body at the morgue at the police station is not Ruth, that actually makes sense, because Ruth is still alive within the continuity of Ruthless. However, when you line up the days, because remember, in terms of the Oval, 2 days have not even passed since the opening episode of the Oval. Basically, since the pilot episode of the Oval up to episode 12 where we are now, there has not been a passage of 48 hours. And I know a lot of people have been like, well, I remember when the Oval was airing and doing my reviews, I remember like, damn, ain't no time passed at all. It's taking forever. Let's not slander the Oval. The Oval is not the first television show that Tyler Perry has put out where passage of time is slow as hell. We're not going to slander. Wasn't there an entire season of If Loving You Is Wrong that took place during like one night? So let's just put a halt on that slander right now. I'm not calling the show out for moving slow. I'm confused by how the timeline of events are not adding up. However, like I said before, the whole Ruth being dead thing, I could potentially let that slide if that's really not Ruth's body at the morgue. However, I did have to take a few liberties, like the woman, the Jane Doe, suspiciously having a tattoo that said Barry, like Ruth, and allegedly a scar, like Ruth, and a face that Nancy and Barry were able to recognize with the photos where she was beaten up when the detective showed them to her. Showed those pictures to them. Keep that in mind. So I guess you could make the argument of, well, Jeremy, let's wait and see what happens during the back half of the Oval. Well, we could do that, but that doesn't mean that would actually fix the timeline issues when it comes to pinpointing key events of both shows. For anybody who watches The Flash on CW or Legends of Tomorrow, you know that time travel and timelines are insane. Yeah. So, all that's to say, here are just a few things to take note of. And I even did these in previous videos, topics, because maybe there are nods to continuity ties between the Oval and Ruthless that have been not so much pushed in our faces, but you kind of have to pay attention to everything that goes on in both shows to, put them together. It isn't just about Ruth taking her daughter from Nancy, which happened in the Oval, which was carried over to Ruthless, and then Tally, who ever since episode 1 has been showing signs of defecting from the cult, leading to her eventual escape and arrival at Nancy's house in episode 8 of the Oval. Here's what we need to take note of. Remember, Sharon works with Kareem at his family pharmacy, which Picky revealed to Barry to be a front for his drug operation. Not his pharmaceutical drugs, but I'm talking about the illegal stuff. Is it possible that Kareem is one of the suppliers for the Rakadushis? Because it was said by the nurse or doctor that was talking with Brian at the hospital in episode 3? Yeah, episode 3 of Ruthless, about all the different drug. Hang on, I got to go back in my notebook to my notes to Ruthless episode 3, because she had like up to 4 to 9 different substances in her. PCP, mushrooms, marijuana, LSD, Valium in micro doses. So it could be possible that Kareem is one of the suppliers. Now, I'm not saying that he and the highest know each other on a buddy-buddy level, but, they are both light-skinned, and, if Drake and Chris Brown can come together after beefing and make a song, then I'm thinking that Kareem and the Highest potentially know each other. I'm just saying. If not the Highest, maybe Daikon. It's like, do you have the supply for the Highest? It's like, yes, I got it right here. And then Sharon is said to be the distributor, so she probably knows about the Colt as well. Just throwing that out there. Another thing to keep note of. Sharon involved in Ruth's death. I already done like 2 videos on this, and I also touched upon it in my video about how does Ruth die. I think I did that last week. But going back to what I mentioned earlier about Envy being part of the Rakadushis and the mothers and everything, Sharon, I don't think is a cult member. I don't think she's a cult member. All I'm saying is she does have a few potentially hidden traits of a cult member of the Rakadushi, such as envy. Don't you think she might envy Ruth and Callie because they're kind of standing in the way of her relationship with Barry? Kind of like having the full attention of Barry. Like, I don't think Callie is that much of a distraction. It's just like Callie is the link between Barry and Ruth. So if you remove that obstacle, then that means Sharon has Barry all to herself. Kind of like a game of chess. I mean, even though technically it's not a piece, you have Ruth who called Callie a special, and then I believe it was the Highest in episode 2 that said, "You're a precious jewel, and your name is going to be Ruby." So you got to pay attention to this stuff, people. So then we have Barry finding the bloody knife and the money, and then the money could be tied to the drug trade or whatever. And then the knife is the alleged knife that Nancy said has been missing since the night of the abduction, which I do believe is the same knife Nancy pulled out on the cult members, and then they actually took the knife away from her. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure it's the same knife. And I remember me and Chandler just our brains exploding trying to figure the knife thing out a while ago. But then also going back to what I said earlier about the whole gun, where did Tally get the gun? It's like the gun that Amanda Cryer had on the night of her death, which I think was a murder, not a taking of her own life. Where was the gun? We never found the gun. All we know is like the same bullets were used to kill Jennifer Salson, and those same bullets were used to kill Amanda Cryer. So, no, Jeremy, don't do this. No, I'm speaking in the third person because I do not want to go down that rabbit hole. So many things we don't know. But did Sharon have something to do with the death? Oh, I would not be surprised by that at all. Then another thing, remember, Tally gave Richard the photo of her child along with the locations of the Rakadushis, which could potentially include the compound itself in Rockwell, Virginia, which we've established after looking at Google Maps is about an hour and 49 minutes away from DC, or close to the location that Richard lives, along with the White House where he works. We know that thanks to Priscilla, in the episode The United Front, which I believe was episode 11. Wait, what was the mid-season finale? Was it The United Front or was it Hidden Secrets? I think it was Hidden Secrets. Well, either way, basically it was the episode of the Oval where all the staff are called to the Oval and Victoria and Hunter put up a United Front. And Priscilla asked about Richard getting his job back, and Hunter's like, yeah, we'll give him the job back. I'm thinking Hunter might not be an asshole for once and actually apologizes and says, is there anything I can do for you? And it's like, well, sir, there's actually one thing. My granddaughter, she was abducted. And maybe, just maybe, he will hand over the photo of Tally's daughter with the locations of the cult members. At least the last known locations, which again, could it possibly include the compound? And then the feds rain hell and take them down. Or we're going to flip it around on its head. Speaking of head, Denise is headless. And I will probably be covering my eyes during the first portion of the Oval when it comes back, because I don't want to see that. I don't like gore. Let's go to Denise. I don't think we've mentioned Denise except for maybe one time where I said, oh yeah, Barry told Denise about Ruth's death. Okay? Now, in the preview for the upcoming episodes of the Oval, I do believe Kyle was saying, oh yeah, we had to take her out because she tried to harm the president. Now, if they do a search on Denise and look up her past and her family, could a cover story of Denise's death be that, hey, her sister is part of the Rakadushis, a very, very anti-white, anti-government cult? So is it possible that Denise being involved with the cult and association with her sister Ruth, who was allegedly found dead, that could be a cover story and potentially give the feds a reason to storm the Rakadushi compound. Like, they're preparing for the sheriff to show up the next day, but they potentially have even more to worry about if the feds show up, either due to Richard giving the information to maybe Sam or Hunter, which leads to them storming the compound, or Kyle creating the cover story of Denise being involved with the Rakadushis and then finding out that the Rakadushis are anti-government, anti-white. Guess what? You have a white person in charge of a powerful government position. So, yeah. Guys, this is insane. A lot of stuff has yet to be covered. I do think there are some plot holes involved in this, but at the same time, this is still an amazing show. I dare say that Ruthless, within 4 episodes, has proven to have a stronger start than The Oval, than Sisters, and I dare say, I said this last week, the first 3 episodes of Ruthless together had me even more excited than the first 10 episodes of the Haves and the Have-Nots that we've gotten so far in 2020, and I stand by that.
Okay, so yeah, I usually don't do this. I've only done this one time, and it was in a Melissa video. I think the one where she jumped off the roof. What I mean by that is, first time I've actually done a segue from my voice and screenshots to me actually being in a video. But this video was very long. I hope you enjoyed it in terms of potentially connecting the Oval and Ruthless, even though there are some massive plot holes that make no sense in regards to the time frame, which we've already established so far in both shows. But I don't know, only time will tell if things can line up, but I think we're still missing one full day to make things line up. But like I said, the biggest consistency, which hasn't been confirmed yet, is whether or not it was Ruth's body that was identified at the police station by Barry and Nancy. But the other big thing is Tally's escape, whether or not she does that. So, regardless of it being very confusing, and if you made it this far into the video, kudos to you. I really hope you give it a thumbs up and hit subscribe if you are new. Ruthless is a fantastic show. Once again, I'm not sponsored. I'm not being paid to say this. This is legitimately a fan. As my shirt says, it is what it is. And Ruthless is a great show. I definitely recommend it. Check out BET Plus. And yeah, we're looking at a new episode in a few days here. It is already Sunday, but this video might not be up until Monday because it is extremely long and editing will take a while. But also, remember, If Loving You Is Wrong comes on Tuesday. So here's the mini plan. This video goes up. I'm taking a break from all videos tomorrow. I might do my Ruthless episode 4 review because I still haven't done that yet. Tuesday, I will upload a couple If Loving You Is Wrong videos before If Loving You Is Wrong comes up. I got a few sister videos I need to get done. I will do those on Wednesday before the new episode airs at 9 p.m. And I should be caught up on all the Ruthless stuff before Ruthless comes back Thursday. So you get a lot of content, especially if you're stuck at home during the events that are going on in the world right now. So I hope everyone is staying healthy, washing your hands. I just took a quick break from recording on my microphone to get a bottle of water because, you know, I was parched. Wash my hands, so I'm good on that. Hope everybody's doing okay. And yeah, kudos to the cast members. Yeah, this is just a interesting, a random segue I'm doing. But yeah, showing my face, introducing myself. I'm not Tyler Perry, so people, please. Nobody's said that in a while. Most people used to think I was Tyler Perry, but I'm not. To the amazing cast of Ruthless, fantastic job. I mean, like I said, I can't think of any weak performances so far. For the most part, everyone is doing their job well. From Daikon just popping up at random. I feel like Daikon is to Andrew what Brad was to Alex on If Loving You Is Wrong a couple seasons ago. Like, anytime Alex is like minding her own business as Randall pops up, or Alex confronts Randall telling him off, but then Brad sees them together, assumes the worst and drives off. Yeah, that's pretty much Daikon growing suspicious by the day of Andrew. And like I said, I got an entire Ruthless playlist I need you to check out to really see where I'm going with the theories and whatnot. Melissa, Matt, Blue Kimball, just the entire cast is great. Thanks for contacting me on social media whenever I tag you all, or I have a question about an interesting theory. Stephanie Charles, aka Nyla from the Pains. Hope Sarah doesn't get in too deep in her storyline, as well as Brian and Lynn and so many other people. The show is called Ruthless, but definitely a lot of Tally focus for now. Not to say Ruth is a non-factor. I just like how we're getting a lot of establishment with the different characters. So with that being said, before I move into the ending of this video, if you want to donate anything to the channel, I'd really appreciate it. There's a link to my PayPal in the description below. And yeah, if any cast members or Tyler Perry watching, I know some celebrities are sending fans money during these trying times. So like PayPal, just kidding. I mean, technically, if you want to send some, I'd appreciate it because I could really use it. But if not, you watching this video, retweeting the video, this really does help out. And could you show it to Tyler Perry? Look, I know Tyler Perry Studios is shut down for production, so I think he would have time to watch this, even though it is a lengthy video. Love to pick his brain on a few things. So if I'm wrong about this, then I'm wrong, even though technically I don't think I am based off the timeline information I've done in research. But thanks for watching. Now, let's finish things up. And I will catch you on the next video because this one wore me out.
Yeah, so a random cutaway. Yeah, don't get used to that. But in any case, wow. Yeah, this video was quite a doozy, but it was fun because I would not do a video this in depth if I didn't give a damn about either of the shows I'm referencing. But yeah, like I said, we'll just have to wait to see what the next several episodes Ruthless bring to the table, not to mention the Oval when that comes back. Another thing I think I glossed over because me and Chandler discussed it is the possibility of, hey, what if Tally's daughter is the one that gets her out of her confinement and then that leads to her escape? That isn't a bad theory because of a couple reasons. We know that Tally's daughter knows where her mom is based off her visiting her mom in the last episode, bringing her bread and telling her to just do better, don't do wrong things so you won't get in trouble. And then Tally wasn't able to get the answer to the questions about like, hey, what are they feeding you before Daikon showed up? So I don't think it would be an impossibility for Tally's daughter to rescue her, but that doesn't answer the question of, well, Jeremy, if Tally's daughter helps her escape, then why didn't Tally take her daughter with her? Because she even says to Nancy and Richard, like, hey, I want you to take in my daughter, and I wasn't able to get my own daughter from that cult, when she was at the dinner table just crying about, escaping from the cult and everything. Maybe her daughter was caught. Maybe Tally tried to get her daughter, but she was, grabbed by one of the guys or the cult members, and then Tally was only able to escape. I would be more willing to believe that Andrew helped her escape and then tried to, cover her tracks, so to speak, or he wasn't able to get away. But then again, I think that Andrew would still be there, so he could potentially be identified by Brian when they go to the cult, the compound the next day, when he's a deputy. Or Ruth could be the one to help out her friend or her girl because she beat her ass and then, actually went through that 7 rings experience, which she was warned about but did not want to believe. So, all that's to say, does Ruthless and the Oval combine into the same timeline? The main deciding factor is Tally's escape. If that happens during this same night that it's taking, if it happens tonight, which is the same night of the events of the Oval, Ruthless in terms of the coordination and everything, then yes, things could potentially work itself out. If not, then this makes 0 sense, and the continuity of both shows are thrown out of whack. Because technically, I don't think Ruthless is going to go more than 1 season. I could be wrong, but in terms of the events, when Ruthless was first announced, I'm like, wow, this show, how is it going to be 24, 25 episodes? When in theory, it should only cover the events from when Callie was abducted to when Ruth is killed, or Tally's death at Nancy's house, which honestly, it shouldn't even cover that far because all that was covered on the Oval. The thing about Ruthless that we needed to cover is, where is Callie and how did Ruth die? And how did where's Callie / Ruby? How did Ruth die? And when and how did Tally escape from the cult? However, we now know that Ruthless is covering more than the span of 12-ish hours, you know, basically from the time Callie was abducted to Ruth's death and then her being found and then brought to the police station, her dead body. So, I don't know. So yeah, this video wasn't meant to be a rant. No, because we went in depth. We covered research. This isn't to see if Tyler Perry had a team of writers, he can make sure continuity would make sense. No, it's not one of those videos. It's the fact that both of these shows are very intriguing, especially Ruthless, and I just want to make sure. Okay, there's a lot of sirens outside, so I'm assuming police cars, ambulances are rushing up the street. Hope everybody's okay, and hang on a second. Okay, they're going up the street for a minute. I thought they were in the parking lot. Sorry about that. But, yeah, these shows are something else. Ruthless took me by surprise. I did not expect it to be as good as it is. I mean, yeah, $9.99 is a bit much. I get it, BET Plus. But remember, if we can support Disney Plus and Netflix and all these and Hulu, we can support BET. Yeah, BET isn't black owned anymore, but guess what? There's a lot of black content. And if we want to see more black content made by producers, if we want to see more of these actors and actresses who happen to be black in more projects, then guess what? We need to show our love. Remember, I'm not sponsored. I'm just a fan. And I'm promoting BET and BET Plus. Sponsorship if you would like to hook me up, you know, links to my social media are in the description below. Just saying, guys. But all jokes aside, this video was a treat, even though it's a lot of work, but I hope you enjoyed it. If there happened to be anything that you think that I got wrong or something that I potentially missed, feel free to let me know. I am welcome to any kind of, not even critique, but, you know, any kind of feedback on this video. And I don't know when the next time I'm doing something this in depth will be, but trust and believe, it will wear me out like this did. But just looking over the notes, I think I covered everything from the time when Ruth took Callie away to when they arrived to the compound to trying to pinpoint if that's Ruth's body at the morgue at the hospital. But there's so many things we don't know, like Lynn's apparent interest in going back to the cult, Sarah tracking Andrew based on his watch, meaning that she might go to the cult. The woman in the opening credits, who I believe is called Nisi, who's supposed to be disfigured in the face and tortured, who I thought in theory might be the woman who's at the police station, but continuity wise that wouldn't make sense, because guess what? The next day after the abduction, when Nancy and Barry go to the police station to identify the body, that can't be Nisi, because guess what? We've already skipped past to the very same night of the day of the morning when the body was supposedly identified, but we've never seen Nisi, unless Nisi is actually shown in a flashback during a future episode of Ruthless, and her body is the one that's tossed out underneath the bridge on Benton Street, brought to the police station, and it just so happened that she had a tattoo of the name Barry and a scar reminiscent to that of Ruth, and that's why Barry somehow identified Ruth as Nisi, and that explains why Ruth is still alive within the continuity of Ruthless, which debunks the first part of this theory, which still doesn't answer the question of how Tally escapes this same night and makes the trip for almost 2 hours from Rockwell, Virginia to DC to where Nancy's house is, leading to the events of her death, which would make sense. So all that's to say, Tyler Perry, hope you're watching this. Please, if you could like hit me up on Instagram or Twitter, just let me know your thoughts on this video. Melissa, Matt, Yvonne, Blue Kimball, who I do believe was in the were you in the Bobby DeBarge movie? I think you were in the Bobby DeBarge movie. I think you were in there. I remember you from the preview. At least I think so. I think so. Whew. Okay, that was a mouthful. I'm done. Check it. Let me know your thoughts. This was insane. I pray that the timelines line up, because this is, oh gosh. All right, guys, I'm done. I'm done. So be on the lookout for future videos. I need to get my brain back in order, because guess what? When If Loving You Is Wrong comes back, we're going to be talking about the baby mama, baby daddy. Well, wait. Hang it. Wasn't there a movie called Three Men and a Baby? So technically, wouldn't that be Ian, Brad, and Randall in regards to Alex's newborn? Yeah, Three Men and a Baby. So be on the lookout for that. And whew, that's Ruthless. Does it line up with the Oval? You decide, because I pretty much laid my case out for you. So thanks a lot, Chandler, for helping me out. Thanks to the amazing cast for being awesome at what you do. To Tyler Perry for making this quite honestly fantastic show. This goes beyond all expectation. Let me say this. For Ruthless to start out as good as it did, one can only hope that Bruh, the show that's kind of like, I don't want to call it a spinoff, but it's kind of like Sisters, but it's going to be male focused instead of a female driven show. So hopefully that show is just as good as this, if not better. And also the upcoming new season of House of Pain and the Mr. Brown Chorus show Assisted Living, which I do believe will be coming to BET this summer. So guys, once again, be safe, wash those hands, avoid large crowds if possible, and I'll talk to you all in the next video.